Hi guys, I hope you're doing well. In today's video, I will talk about OpenClaw, the open source personal AI agent that has completely taken over the internet. And more specifically, I will talk about the heart of OpenClaw agentic architecture. So this is an overview of the agent architecture. Let's have a quick look at it. And in the next slides, we will talk about each block more in details. So as you see here, we have different blocks of information that will be given to the agent and to be considered before providing an answer to the user. So the first block represents the tools available to the agent to enhance its capabilities. The second block represents the dynamic context, talking about real-time recent messages or historical messages that are returned by a semantic memory search. And also we have a block related to the skills. There are the workspace files that contain the agent's core behavior, its sound, and guidelines related to the use of the available tools. And these are related to the current workspace. I'm talking about current workspace because we can have many workspaces consumed by different agents. When we talk about multi-agent based applications, and this is one of the strengths of this kind of applications like OpenClaw, where you can have different agents attached to different applications, so different source of information and sometimes like different use cases or different behaviors. So that's why we can have a completely separate workspace associated to each agent. But I will talk about this at the end of the video. And last but not least, we have the PyAgent core block, where we have the base instructions, which are immutable and consistent across different scenarios given to the agent. These different blocks will be injected in the system prompt and will be given to the model alongside with the user message and the conversation history. So now let's dive in these blocks one by one. So as for the tools available to the agent, we have two types of tools. We have the built-in tools and the plugin tools. For the built-in tools, they are actually functions that are hard-coded, so manually defined. And it's important to define well these tools, guys, because the model will base itself on these different tools definitions to understand the purpose of each tool. Some examples of this tool: we have the bash tool, which is used to execute code. We have the browser tool for web search, and this is how the agent becomes able to interact with external digital world. And all this information, guys, the tools definitions, their docs, and how and when to use these tools are part of the system prompt so that the model knows how to call them. The second type of tools are the plugin tools. So these ones can be custom build extensions or third-party APIs that can be called by the model. An example of these tools can be a database that is available via API and that can be searched. And like the built-in tools that we've just seen, their schemas and usage instructions have to be part of the system prompt so that the model knows when and how to use these tools. The next block of OpenClaw agent architecture is related to the recent messages, which are the immediate conversational context, and these actually are the most recent messages within the current conversation. This allows the agent to remember what was just said. So here we are talking about recent. We are not talking about historical messages here. We will see the historical messages in another block. And these recent messages will be part of the conversation history that we see here, that will be given alongside with the user message and system message in the final prompt. The next block is the skills block, and these skills, guys, are not other than markdown files of specialized instructions for how to tackle complex tasks. We have separate files for different skills. As you see here, we can have a dedicated file for the research skill, another one for coding, and another one for reporting. And this is very useful, guys, because it permits the agent to load only the relevant skills for a specific task. So once you have less risk to reach the context limit, and you will not have irrelevant information related to your current task. Also, you separate them completely from the basic instructions that will be always given to the agent, whatever the task in hand is. The next block is the memory search. And here we are talking about a semantic search where a similarity search, a semantic similarity search will be applied given the user query. So let's say we have the user query, and given this query, a similarity score will be calculated between the query and different blocks from the previous sessions. And as a result, we will have the long-term memories or fact from these previous sessions, and they are called long-term memories, guys, because they are not the immediate or the recent messages that we've seen in the first block here, first block of the dynamic context. And another difference, guys, between these historical messages compared to the recent messages is that the historical messages go directly in the system prompt, as we see here in the diagram, compared to the recent messages, which are part of the current or ongoing session. They are injected directly in a conversation history block, and both of them alongside with the user prompt form the final prompt that will be injected in the module. Now let's talk about the workspace files, which are agents, soul, and tools markdown files. So for the agents file, it contains high-level logic, what the agent is supposed to do. We put the agent persona here, and this will serve as guidelines for all the module responses. For the soul file, as its name indicates, it adds a soul to the agent. So we define its tone, humor, or empathy levels. You can add as much attributes as you need. And the advantage of having these kind of files is that you keep your agent character consistent across different sessions and tasks. So you don't need to define them each time, and you define them or update them only once. Now, the third type of files from the workspace files are the tools files, and these are one of the most important and critical files, guys, because it's there where you put instructions on how to use a tool. And this is important, guys, because you help the model to choose which tool to call based on the situation. So you tell the model, if you have this situation, you can call this model. So this helps to guide the model and decreases the risk to call wrong tools, either due to hallucination or any other reason, especially when we have many tools available for the model. And last but not least, we have the PyAgent core that contains the base highest level instructions. Once we have all our blocks defined, they will be injected in the conversation history and system prompt to form the final prompt. So for the conversation history, as mentioned earlier, it contains the most recent messages, like what we see here, a sequence of the recent exchange between the user and the assistant. Also, we have the user prompt, which is the raw input or the query, the current query provided by the user, which will be placed at the very end of the prompt, the user prompt. And we have the system prompt, which is created by the combination of all or almost all the previous blocks, except this one, which goes in the conversation history. And once we have our final prompt defined, this is injected in the LLM, where all the processing will happen, all the context processing will happen, including all the information passed from these blocks. And this is where, depending on if a direct response can be given, this is where the model can give a direct response, or it calls tools that it needs to provide the answer. So this includes all the calls between the needed tools, the plugin or the built-in tools, and the answers returned from these tools that will be added to the context given to the model. And based on all this information that the model has, it processes it and returns the final answer to the user. So what I've just presented, guys, was for only one agent, but in multi-agent architectures, like the one used in OpenClaw, we have different agents dedicated to different channels. Like here, we can have one for WhatsApp channel, for Discord, and for Telegram. And as I mentioned in the very beginning of the video, each of these agents can have a different workspace defined by different files, like the agents files, the soul files, or the skills, and so on. This is it, guys, for today. I hope you liked the video. Stay tuned to my channel because I will post more videos on how OpenClaw works. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and see you next time.